What is up, everybody? My name is Wes. This is Top Shelfers, and I have beat 20 games so far this year. It's a wide range of different games. I've been streaming these games, and I have a little gimmick of wheel spinning random games and beating them and then reviewing them and all that type of stuff. And I wanted to go over the first 20 games I've beaten this year so far, how I ranked them, like in order of worst to best, as well as what the score they got on my review. So I review games on a handful of different things. It's either 10 or 11, depending on if it's a multiplayer game or not. Categories: graphics and visual, gameplay mechanics, story and narrative, audio and sound design, replay value, difficulty and balance, world design and exploration, performance and technical stability, community and multiplayer, innovation, originality, and hours versus dollars. And then they get an average score out of those categories. Now, with this ranking that I'm doing today, it is not in order of what their score was when they reviewed it or when I reviewed it. It is based on of what I enjoyed playing the most and what I think the most fun game is out of these 20. When I do the reviews, I try not to factor in anything on the outside. I don't try and compare it to other games when I do the review. I beat the game and then I immediately jump in the review with as much raw emotion from the game as I have. Sometimes the review gets pushed to the next day, but I want to review the games subjectively by themselves, against themselves, and not against each other game. So you're going to see some games that have a lower score higher on my list, and then you're going to see some games with a higher score lower on, or a higher review but lower on my ranking. So let's just jump into it. I'm going to pull up my reviews here so I can kind of talk about why I did or didn't like a game. So the first one is Fear the Unknown Dave's Story. I gave it a 4.4 out of 10. I mean, I don't know if this was a school project, if this is just a kid developing a game, or what the deal was. There wasn't much to it. It was kind of silly. It took like 25 minutes to beat. Everyone who was watching live was just kind of like, oh, I guess that's the end of it. And then we moved on. There's just not really any substance to this game, and I just don't really. It was kind of I don't know. There just needs to be more to it. Hopefully he makes more games in the future because I love the idea. It's very Fears to Fathom esque, right? I mean, just look at the text font. Next on the list is Daemonology. Now, this game had some really big potential. The visual was crazy. It's very dark and gritty and gruesome. But I just don't know what the point of the game was because you don't even know if you win or lose. Basically, there's a little town, and you click on these pictures, and you go and I get investigate slash torture someone because there's a demon in the village, and then you do everything and you pick someone, and then the game just like doesn't tell you if you're right or wrong, and then you go on to the next one. I don't know if that is just because it's not developed right, or if it is like the intention of it, like you just don't know if you're right or wrong, so sucks to suck. It wasn't fun to play, and it wasn't free. That was one of the biggest gripes. Is I think it was like $6 or $7, which don't get me wrong, isn't a lot for a game, but I ran through it, and you just click a couple buttons, and then it just goes to the next game. I don't know. It was not good. Number 18. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about review regret because I played this game on the hardest difficulty, and it was so not fun to play. Um, and I think that really impacted my score here because I think I would give it a higher score if I would have just not been a grouch and played a little bit on an easier difficulty. But, regardless, there was some decent things there. It was a $40 game for about 6 hours, 7 hours of game time, which is kind of crazy. And I just I just didn't think it was worth the hype. I really don't. I've played games that are $20 with the same mechanics and not a quiet place branding that were better. Is it really a 5.8 out of 10? I don't know. I don't think so. Probably not. But in the moment, right after beating the game, I did the review and this is where it landed. And even still, like looking back on it, I don't like. I'm putting it 18. It still was probably my least favorite game, um, aside from the first two, obviously, that I've played this year. 17, Massacre at the Mirage. Now, I want to talk about every game going forward here. I enjoyed quite a bit. I think that every game, thankfully, we only really had two actual stinkers and then one arguable stinker. And then everything else was seemingly pretty damn good. The only reason why this game is at 17 is there's just not any gaming in it, really. You just kind of walk around and do a couple like chores, and that's it. And then you watch this kind of Art the Clown ripoff kill the people around you. And then you got like there's like maybe 10 times where you got to mash a button on your keyboard or your mouse, but that's it. Aside from that, though, story was fun. Visuals were phenomenal. I love the way it looked. It's very neon synth 80s, bright carpets, bright neon signs. The game's good. Was a little overpriced. I think it was like 13 bucks, but in my eyes, there's potential of this developer of making some really really great things. I just think that charging that much where they're at now is just not really worth it. I love supporting new developers, but just a little too much there. 16, we played Gears of War Ultimate Edition. Now, like I said, we have a lot of games on this list that are really good. And going back through X amount of years later through the Gears of War game, I still had a lot of fun. The game's awesome. It's fucking metal to the core. Everything about it is enjoyable. I just think in comparison to how much fun I had with the other games, it's just not going to stack up high, but it's still a great game. If you've never experienced the Gears of War games, go do it. They're so fun. They're worth your time. 15 is Teleform. Teleform is a short game that I have no idea what in the hell was going on. You start off in an elevator, and it's a point and click game, which I thought was going to be awful. You start in an elevator, and you go up to this floor, and you're kind of like learning this story unfold in front of you of a guy went into a news station, and I think he was a anchor and either killed himself or killed people, and then all shit breaks loose and you go and interview his wife and you find out that there was like a VHS tape that made him go crazy, and then you're the person, like you're the cameraman, you're playing as the cameraman, and then you're the person who's doing the interview, like you're, I don't know, the reporter watches the VHS tape and it goes crazy, and then it ends, and I'm like, oh well, that was stupid. But then you play the game again, and now everything's different, and basically you're rinsing and repeating through the game over and over again to try and find different clues and find out what's going on. It's very creepy, and I'll be honest with you, I don't think I even got close to getting everything out of the game, and I tried to run through it like 4 or 5 times. I like that type of stuff personally when it's like this level, right? Compared to like Massacre at the Mirage, it I don't ever need to go back through that game. I don't think I missed anything, and if I did, it's just little one-off Easter eggs, right? This game, I have no idea what's going on, and for being a point and click game that has zero gameplay mechanics, I was blown away. And I think it was free. So, like, how can you argue a free game that is just crazy insane? All right. Jump into the next one. Tales Beyond the Tomb. This is a very, an exact replica game style as Fears to Fathom, which is also on this list. I don't have a lot to say about Tales Beyond the Tomb that I won't say about Fears to Fathom. I just feel like the stories in Fears to Fathom are more enjoyable, a little bit better. The games are just a little bit more atmospheric and a little bit more spooky and better scares. But Tales Beyond the Tomb is definitely right behind there. It's still fun. It's still worth the money. It's still a good time. If you like quick, scary gameplay, narrative experiences, don't hesitate to go after this one. Number 13 is The Cabin Factory. You know, The Cabin Factory is probably one of the most unique horror gaming experiences I've had in a long time. Basically, the premise is you get hired at this factory and they make cabins for horror movie sets. And your job is to go into the cabin and inspect it and make sure it's actually not haunted by this family you see in front of you. And how you do that is you have to see if there's any anomalies, like anything weird going on in the house that typically isn't going on in the house. And you have to, once you go in, you walk out, and if you have to click this little like box that says whether it was haunted or not haunted, and you have to get 10 right in a row, and then you beat the game, quote unquote. I think there's more to the game than when I left off, but I've had a really good time playing this, interesting, unique little horror game. Number 12 is going to be Is This Game Trying to Kill Me? Speaking of uniqueness, and again, like I said, there's so many good games that I played in these first 20 games of the year that having this game on 12 is crazy because I think people would absolutely put this game in their top 50. It's so fun and so uniquely different. Basically, this gentleman that you see on the screen is a Airbnb, I guess, cabin owner, and you show up at the cabin, and it's an escape room game with puzzles. But the kicker is there's a computer in the room, and there's a game on the computer, and you have to play the game, and things that happen in the game trigger things in the room, and things in the room trigger things in the game. So you got like an inception of game going on, and it's really fun. None of the puzzles were brainstakingly difficult. You know, I got distracted a couple times by just like chatting it up with people, but you could probably beat the game pretty straightforward without too much difficulty. I use some hints, but you definitely wouldn't need to if you just pay attention. And I guess there's a lot of endings to the game, and the ending that I got was, I guess, not really a great one. But I don't know what triggers the different endings, so that makes me very curious to go back and play it. Going to number 11, we're going to put Bramble the Mountain King. Now, Bramble the Mountain King has a 7 out of 10 because this was the first game that I reviewed in my new format. And I did this like almost a year ago. I had streamed a little bit a year ago, or I was making game videos over like a year ago. And I just really didn't have an idea of how to do the reviews, and I just threw one up. But I wanted to add this to the list because I did do it in this new format. And Bramble the Mountain King is very much a Little Nightmares-esque game, just based on Scottish, I think it was Scottish, folklore. It's super cool. If you if you like those types of games, this game is right up your alleyway. Visually great, the story is interesting, the boss fights and characters and art style are really good. I would definitely rate the game differently now that I kind of have a better understanding of how I like to rate games. But I wanted to throw this on here just not a shout out, but it's a good game. So going into our top 10, we have Fears to Fathom All the Stories. I gave it a 7.3 out of 10, but this is definitely the premier brand of this type of game. This, narrative horror walking simulator type game. All of them are great. The Ironbark Lookout is phenomenal. They're just creepy games based off real stories put into this walking sim narrative point and click type game. I'm very hopeful there's going to be more Fears to Fathom in the future. If you haven't seen them, they're popular everywhere. There's YouTube videos, shorts, TikToks everywhere. They're fun to play. Number 9. This is where things got really difficult for me because I feel like the top 10 are games that are just so good. And I really think that on any given day I would flip flop from 9 to 3. I could flip flop all the games in any order. I'll be honest with you. Benny and the Ink Machine is a fucking masterpiece of a little horror game with a unique art style. It's very vintage cartoon esque, as you can even see with the cover art. It's got a cool story. The biggest thing that just stops me from enjoying this game is how much of a letdown the final boss was. I can't let it go. If the final boss was awesome and a cool fight and just super unique and difficult, the game wouldn't be at 9. But you build up and build up and build up and build up to fight this final boss, and it is a stinker. I don't care what anyone says, that final boss sucks. But getting there, the story along the way, what you're doing, the visuals, it's a phenomenal game. And I think this is one of the highest rated games that I had reviewed so far against, itself, right? Number 8, we're going to have Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver 1, the remaster. Now, this is obviously a game from the early 90s, or no, late 90s, I believe. It has a very big cult following. It is a super fun game to play. It's puzzles and combat and action, and the story that they're unfolding is pretty sweet. The only reason why it's not higher is it's just it reminds me a lot of going through Half-Life for the first time, and I'm not comparing the two games. Half-Life, sorry, Legacy of Kain fans, Half-Life is way better. But you just don't have direction of where you're going, and you need to use a lot of context clues, which isn't a bad thing. I enjoy that type of game, but something about Legacy of Kain just held itself back for me a little bit on my enjoyment meter. I don't know. There's something that I just didn't really fully like. And with that being said, it's 8 on my list, right? It's still good. But I feel like there's people, and I know specifically a couple people who would probably put it as the best game they've played ever. And it's not there for me. Number 7 is Mass Effect 1. It is the Legendary Edition. I mean, what an iconic series and franchise. I know that the games get better up until Andromeda. Mass Effect 1's story is phenomenal. The game is beautiful, at least the Legendary Edition. The only thing that holds Mass Effect back for me is I really don't care for the combat. It's just really goofy and wonky. The AI just don't properly work. And that is going for your team and the enemies. There's parts with really difficult spikes and then parts that are super easy. Those things really held it back from being a top 3 game for me. Story wise, though, it's right there. Number 6 is Alien Isolation, another very highly rated game. I mean, I don't have much bad to say about this game. There are some parts that are more frustrating than fun. Again, I did play it on a harder difficulty though, so if you're running through the game just on normal, you probably wouldn't have those frustrations. But a beautifully crafted game with an amazing story and just an absolute boogeyman with the alien. It is very much an alien like in the original Alien movie where you're not doing shit against it. You're just dying, so you better hide good. A lot of fun to play. Excited to get through the second one. Number 5. I'm surprised that it fell to number 5 for me, which says a lot about our top 5. is the Red Dead Redemption remaster. I fucking love Red Dead Redemption. I love Red Dead Redemption 2. I love Red Dead Undead Nightmare. I don't have anything negatives to say. There's some slow parts in this game, and the one thing with revisiting this game, and I mentioned it while playing, is the same issue that I have with going back and playing Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas is the world is pretty empty. And you notice it way more in this game than I remember. Obviously, playing it as a kid, you don't really think about it because you're a cowboy fucking shooting bad guys. But revisiting it, you realize that there's a lot of missions where we're just riding our horses in emptiness to a location to do a thing. Um, with that being said, it's still phenomenal. The story's still great. It's a classic revenge story. And the ending, if you don't know what the ending is, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it's just not expected. All right, number 4, the Silent Hill 2 remake. Now, if you watch me stream this game and you see that the review is a little low, again, there was some frustrating parts for me playing on hard, but I don't think that took away from how amazing Silent Hill 2 is as a game. And the remake made everything look absolutely beautiful, absolutely stunning. It it lived up to what I wanted it to for a Silent Hill 2 remake, and I am beyond hype for Silent Hill F, or is it V? Silent Hill V, Silent Hill F. I don't know. It's the story is crazy and hard to understand, but it's a mixture of grief and depression and death and loss and trying to manage it, and it's portrayed in this crazy story and city, and the characters are weirdly unique like you would expect them to be. It's just Silent Hill 2 is just its own masterpiece. Number 3, a game that had been on my list for a long time and I never got around to until recently. Ghostwire Tokyo. I do not feel like enough people talk about this game. And I feel the same way about my number 1 here. Ghostwire Tokyo is such a beautiful game with a very interesting story and very fun combat. It's an open world sandbox. There's missions, there's side quests. I don't think I did any of the side quests. I just did the whole entire story, and the game is so fucking cool and fun. There's silliness mixed with seriousness. I There's cats everywhere that sell you weird stuff. There's dogs that lead you to treasure, and then there's creatures all around the city that just want to kill you. And the way that you fight is just really fun. The fighting does get a little repetitive after a while, but you can spice it up in different ways. New stuff all the way to the end with combat and creatures, and it really was how Sandbox should be. I had a lot of fun with this game. All right, my top 2. I feel like number 2 is no surprise to anybody, and number 1 might be a surprise. It shouldn't be, but number 2 is going to be Detroit Become Human. An absolute masterclass storytelling game that just leaves me wanting to play it over and over and over again. If you guys aren't familiar with what Detroit Become Human is, it's a game about AI, and they slowly but surely, some of them are becoming more conscious. Maybe. Um, I don't even know how to talk about this game to do it justice. It is every decision you make has a ginormous impact on the story, and they show you at the end of every single chapter how your decision led you through the chapter and how many other decisions there could have been. I think you can end the game with everybody dying or everyone living. I had an ending where everyone survived, surprisingly, and this game made me so emotional. The final 30 minutes was fucking crazy, a tearjerker, man. It was so sad, happy. I don't even know how to express it. The game is a masterpiece. Do not let people who hype this game up ruin you from trying it. Just play it. You can get through one single playthrough pretty at a decent time, and then you're gonna want to play it again and again and again because there's so many options that you can do in this game. It is phenomenal. I can't tell you enough how good this game is. This is easily in my top 50 games of all time now, and so is number one by a long shot. But I just this game, if you play any game this year that you haven't played Detroit Become Human, add it to your list and do it. It is worth your time. And number one, Control. I am not even going to try and explain to you this story, but there is so much modern day conspiracy tied into this game, explained in this game, and shown to you in this game. And the combat, the detail, all the files, how the game unfolds, it is. I can't even talk about it. It is so fucking good. It is so good. It is like I can't compare it to anything. I really can't. I can't compare this game to anything because it is so vastly unique in the experience. At its core, it's a third person shooter, right? At its core, it's a third person shooter with powers. Okay. But there is so much going on in this game, and there's so much conspiracy that is expressed through this game that it gives me Black Mirror vibes, and it gives me this feeling of like whoever created this game does have some information that might be real. I don't know. It is a mind boggling quest through just the wildest ride I have ever played, I think, in modern day games. And that's a bold statement that I'm saying. I get it. But I plan on playing games this whole entire year, streaming them, and I do not expect anything to be on par with Control this year. That's how much I enjoyed this game. We will see. I hope I'm wrong. I hope there's games that shit on Control. But this game is easily in my top 50, probably in my top 10 now of all time. It I want I have the DLC. It's on my wheel spin. I'm begging the wheel god to fucking spin it so I can go back and play this game more. It is just that good, guys. If you like conspiracy, you like weird and unique, you like mystery, thriller, carnage, paranormal, I mean everything. If any of those genres are on your radar, this is the game for you. I think that if you're a gamer period that likes to enjoy unique experiences, you need to add Detroit Become Human and you need to add Control to your list immediately and play them as soon as you can because you will not regret your time. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching this. I'm excited to jump into more games. I stream almost every day. You can find it here on YouTube or the Purple app. I'm always I stream in the evening and then random times throughout the weekend. Hope to see some new faces, but if not, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me through this video. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.